preview.
Remember Me is the quintessential example of a good game that could have been an outstanding one. It's easy to see its weaknesses, mostly because there's so much potential aching to be released. The world Remember Me creates looks incredible, but the game is so frustratingly confined that you never get a chance to discover it. The premise is outstanding, but the story never rides it to the heights you expect it to. You get the sense that Remember Me never quite gets to where it might have gone. And yet it's still a slick-looking action game with a terrific protagonist that you want to see succeed. And it's the kind of game that you want to see a sequel to, because its setting and its ideas are so neat that you want to explore them further. That world is centered on a futuristic Paris, where memories are a commodity to be sold and traded. It's a place where you can wipe away unhappy memories and where memory addicts roam the sewers as husks of their former selves. You are Neelan, a former memory hunter who could steal and manipulate other people's memories. After your own memory is wiped, you join a separatist movement called the Errorists. Your goal? Piece your life back together and bring down the corporation that introduced this technology to the world. This is a great premise, and Neelan is a fantastic and fantastically voiced character. She's both powerful and vulnerable, which makes it easy to connect with her. The story starts well, but it ultimately flattens into a by-the-numbers narrative with you performing generic action game tasks for the voice in your ear. Neo Paris has a colorful and unique near-future look that gets you excited to see more of it, and the soundtrack sets a near-perfect tone with urgent string section rhythms and synthesized buzzing. But Remember Me might be one of the most irritatingly linear action games ever created. It ushers you through the narrowest of narrow corridors and walkways, rarely giving you a chance to explore. This is a remarkable looking city filled with little visual touches, but don't expect to explore anything but a cramped portion of it. Once you settle in, however, you'll enjoy the theme park ride. Remember Me takes on a predictable but comfortable rhythm of scripted platforming and hand-to-hand combat with a few twists to keep the pace interesting. The platforming is straight from the Uncharted school of navigation. You only leap where the game shows you can leap. The excitement isn't in the actual movement, but in the heady camera angles that make you look like you're in peril, even though there's little danger. The combat is interesting in part because of a system that lets you create your own combos, and it does have some neat elements, like certain attacks that heal you. Still, the combat is pretty predictable and limited. You leap over enemies when they signal an incoming attack, and spend the rest of the time clobbering them. Some of the enemies do require you to pull off certain techniques, which keeps the fighting from becoming overly stagnant. And you have some special moves you can execute, like planting a bomb on an enemy or turning a robot against your foes. The main problem with the combat is the camera, which is usually troublesome anyway, but in particular during fights in small spaces. The game's tight linearity doesn't just restrict your exploration, it also creates situations in which the camera can't give you a good view of what's going on. Remember Me also gives you a device that lets you open doors, manipulate certain objects, and so on, but the puzzles crafted around these mechanics are too simple to be engaging. It's when Remember Me breaks free of typical game conventions that it really shows some spark. The spark is most noticeable when you break into somebody's memories and change them so that they might behave differently in the here and now. Not only does doing so lead to some great narrative moments, but it means deciding what changes to make from a variety of choices. To create the desired outcome, you rewind and fast forward the scene, making changes until you get things just right. It's fun to watch various scenarios play out based on your tweaks, and the whole process is made even more satisfying by great visual and audio cues. Remember Me uses impressive production elements, its cool lead character, and its great premise and setting to pull you through to the end. But it's not hard to look at this game and think of all the possibilities it squandered, and yet its relatively unimpressive pieces merge into a shallow yet satisfying guided tour through a world you wish you could see more of. Remember Me isn't special, but it does a few things differently enough to find a solid place among modern action games.
Food served all day at the Leaky Brain. Today's specials: crunchy crab cake a la Tommy and sewer shrimps in slum sauce.